Well, the United States courts have learned an old trick. It's called lying in order to prevent ordinary people, the serfs, if you will, the slaves, from getting their day in court. I have caught the federal courts, including the United States Supreme Court, falsely claiming that New York State doesn't do huge amounts of business in other states. And based on that fraud, the courts of the United States, including the United States Supreme Court, have come up with this scheme, this racket to deny people the right to sue a state by what's known as diversity of citizenship. In other words, suing New York State in North Carolina's courts, the federal courts. They told me I can't have any due process. They told me I can't have any equal protection, and I don't get any constitutional rights at all because supposedly New York State doesn't do sufficient business in North Carolina. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, here's the truth. I went years back and forth with the state of New York's Secretary of State and the office of the governor, asking just how much business they do pursuant to the interstate compacts. How much business do they do in North Carolina? And the answer is massive amounts of business. Finally, the Secretary of State for the state of New York sent me a 496-page Excel spreadsheet on the massive expenses to conduct their travel and visits to North Carolina to conduct their official business. Millions of dollars in expenses for them to travel from New York State to North Carolina to play golf and to have their ultra luxurious junkets like at Myrtle Beach and et cetera, so on and so forth, to conduct massive amounts of official business in North Carolina. So I've caught the federal courts just flat out lying, folks, to deny the right of an individual to sue the state of New York in a foreign jurisdiction's court, the United States courts of North Carolina. Now, the significance to what I'm informing you of here is quite simply this. The federal courts have come up with this racket, if you will, to deny to so-called pro se litigants. They even begin to diminish you immediately as a non-bar card carrier. They use the smear that you're pro se and you just don't understand and you just don't get it. And, they come up with every imaginable created excuse and lie to cheat you out of your day in court. In other words, you have a federal judiciary that's as corrupt as all hell, being run by people in black robes with bar cards in their pockets, denying ordinary people, let's go ahead and call these ordinary people citizens, their rights under the Constitution of the United States, under the constitutions of the states, and under the laws of the states and of the United States. Incorporated, of course. Everybody knows that the United States government's bankrupt, and all they've got to spend is stimulus and helicopter money and quantitative easing fiat printed from thin air, Joe Biden dollars, Donald Trump. Donald Trump's turned out to be a real loser, man. Yeah, old Donald Trump and his tax schemes. He's just a two-faced snake. Is what Donald Trump is, just like Biden and Obama and the Clintons and the Bushes. They've been running this bankrupt United States government incorporated with the fantastical printed out of thin air fiat script, also known as shin plaster. But in any event, folks, let's get back to how they are denying to vast numbers of people their rights to protection of the laws under the U.S. Constitution. They just make it up as they go along. They make it up as they go along. The only reason I'm discussing in my case the precedent case decision of International Shoe versus Washington State is because the federal courts used it to tell me that I can't have any legal rights because New York State doesn't do sufficient business in North Carolina, which is an absolute lie. It's a make it up as we go along fraud. It's not true, in other words, ladies and gentlemen. It's completely bogus. It's a bogus excuse that was used by the district courts in North Carolina, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Charlotte, Virginia, and the United States Supreme Court, who, of course, just rubber stamped it with their nonsense up there. The U.S. Supreme Court hears less than 1% of the writs of certiorari to the court, the appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court. 99% plus of all appeals that get filed with the court get thrown in the garbage. 99% of all cases filed to the U.S. Supreme Court are simply thrown away in the trash. Now, what kind of system of racketeering is that? You heard me, ladies and gentlemen. 99% of all cases that go up to the U.S. Supreme Court simply get thrown in the garbage because the Supreme Court justices are too busy on the golf course and taking vacations and going water skiing on their boat and, doing these ultra luxurious junkets to all these exotic destinations. They don't have the time because they're too busy yucking it up and playing around. The 9 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court is the biggest racket. It's a big scam, folks. And they deny to vast numbers of people any semblance whatsoever of any due process and equal protection of the laws. 99% plus of all appeals filed to the U.S. Supreme Court are thrown in the dumpster. You call that justice? I call it a stinking racket. So there you go, folks. This is for all my constituents and my comrades out there in the field that are wondering, am I just stupid, or am I being targeted here by the federal courts? And I'm going to tell you something about the federal courts. In this particular case right here, in that case, right, those cases right there, they got caught lying about it. New York State does massive amounts of business in North Carolina, and the precedents of International Shoe versus Washington State on a grand scale have been met. But when I caught this judicial system lying, and they lied about it, they avoid the discussion of it. They're burying it. They won't even refer to it in their memoranda and in their opinions. They don't want to talk about it because they're concealing it. Hocus pocus, ladies and gentlemen, hocus pocus. So I'm going to leave it right there, and I want you all to remember something. The new Untouchables and the video series by Patrick Lovell, the Con, long before Patrick Lovell purchased his home that he lost in foreclosure, there were thousands of other people fighting this fight of exposing the crooked gangster banksters and their ranchero racketeer games. You listening to that, Patrick Lovell? Beware of the ranchero racketeers. You know, a Friggins story. And then, of course, you had Don Bowles and the Arizona Project, done by the the Investigative Reporters and Editors Group out of Kansas City, Missouri, the University of Kansas City. This is going on back in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, decades before Patrick Lovell purchased the home that he lost in foreclosure. So Patrick Lovell and Eric Vaughn, I'm sorry, folks, but Michael Winston and Richard Bowen know damn well that old Judson Witham ain't fooling around. And there's millions of other witnesses that know this for a fact. Old Judson Witham is no bullshitter. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave it right there. And as always, we will be back.